A doctor, hacker, smuggler, and a security operations specialist. This crew aboard the Orpheus she had been attached to was going to be the scalpel to the Defiance's sword, and she was the one to wield it. On the bridge, connected to the rest of the ship, information poured in, and she was able to process it within a blink of an eye. The hum of processors, climate control units, air recyclers, and engine vibrations set her mind at ease. What do you think they're up to? Her peaceful serenity, cut short by that constantly chattering hacker. Trishala opened her eyes and looked down at the grinning idiot in his sleeveless jacket and spiky red hair. I assume you are talking about Dr. Rouhani and Miss Swanson? Well, yeah. Who else? There's no one else on this bucket of rust. And why'd they put us on a freighter of all things? Surely we could do a lot more with one of those fancy O-12 ships? Trishala closes her eyes for a moment. If you were to look closely, you would have seen the eyes moving behind the lids as she processed the entire ship's comm data and status reports. They are in the training room practicing ballistics. Rouhani has an above average target score. Ada shows impressive prowess with light arms. Her scores are close to Uma Sorensen's best. A fancy O-12 ship would bring too much attention. Also, the Minotaur engine would rip through a warship's engine core. Freighters, although unsophisticated, are built for heavy workloads. Warships are built hard on the outside. Freighters are built hard from the inside. They have a strong heart. Whoa, I think that is the closest I've ever heard you get close to anything resembling a feeling. And of course it's for a cold metal machine, but hey, it's something, am I right? Trishala stares back, showing no emotion either way to the comment. A few seconds pass before Victor raises his eyebrows and gets up from his console. Well, that wasn't awkward in the slightest. Well, I'm going to go stretch my legs. According to my data, your console has been running its auto-cardio protocols. Even sitting, you have been stretching. You would not need to go to do that. For the love of Aleph, it's a bloody expression. You could make a Fidei feel uncomfortable. I'm going for a walk because you wind me up and I need a break. Is that clear enough? Trishala continues to stare unblinkingly at Victor. Victor waits for a response that doesn't come. Ugh! He throws his arms up and leaves the room, stepping far louder than was necessary to Trishala's mind. She did find, what was it, some amusement from the exchange. She thought it quite appropriate that Victor disliked her quiet as much as she disliked his noise. Now alone on the bridge, she closed her eyes, returning to the peace of the data stream. Engines were at peak efficiency. Checking navigation, they would rendezvous with O-12 on Paradiso ahead of schedule by her estimates. They were less than an hour out from being in orbit for the dropship. Crew members' vital signs were as expected. She let herself have the briefest and smallest of smiles, seeing the slightly peaked vitals of Victor, most likely irritation from their previous conversation. But for a man that let his feelings make decisions for him, he was a most capable hacker. She processed his reports within seconds. Yes, she could see why O-12 picked him. It seemed no system was safe once he had decided to take a look inside. She only wished he was more sensible. But there was something to be said for a person's intuition and how surprisingly it could be relied on. She would still only trust in the data. Information. That's what she relied on. She let the wave of information wash over her. Immersed in everything the ship is, she felt its systems like the breath in her body. The shape of the ship, the movements of the crew inside, the automatic systems and computers running their routine programs. It felt as comfortable as her own skin. Then there was the itch. Something not quite right in the stream of numbers. An anomaly. There was something hidden. Taking into account all known cargo, personnel, ship specifications, and margins of error, there was an excess of total mass. All the results and self-diagnostics came back without error, but her immersion in the system, able to pull data from multiple sources, pulled at her intuition. There was definitely something the size of a small dropship hidden in the numbers and not accounted for. After discovering the error, it didn't take her long to know what the problem was. She snapped her eyes open and jumped toward the bridge's console to enable the red alert system. But just as she did so, the ship was rocked by an explosion. Victor ran back onto the bridge in a panic. Through his surprise and the lurching movement of the ship caused by the explosion, he smacked his knee into the nearest console with a sharp corner. For God's sake! Victor then hobbles the rest of the way and shakes out the pain of his leg. What in the human sphere just happened? Trishala is accessing the console at great speed, but showing no signs of panic, unlike Victor. An unknown vessel has hitched itself to our ship. For how long, I don't know, but they made a lot of effort to keep themselves hidden. By the force of the explosion, the change in trajectory of the ship, and my preliminary damage reports, they've just made a controlled detonation from their ship to ours to simultaneously board and knock out our engines. Both goals have been successful. From my calculations of the ship's size, we can assume at least 6 combatants are now boarding us. At least 6? How many could there be? At most 14. 14? We're screwed. Oh, wait a minute. Weren't Ada and Ramen in the shooting range? That's near the engines. Are they all right? Visuals and communication repeaters around the training facility have been knocked out, most likely from an EMP blast accompanying the boarding charges. Vitals suggest that Dr. Rouhani is conscious, but with an elevated heart rate. Ada seems to be worse. She's most likely injured, but not killed. It would seem that the enemy, whoever they are jamming our systems, preventing us from accessing visuals or communications. Make yourself useful and get us back control of our ship. Alrighty then. Victor plants himself down at his console, taking care not to knock his weakened knee, cracks his knuckles, and starts accessing the systems. Trish, this code isn't like anything I've ever seen in the human sphere. As I expected, we are being boarded by the Combined, most likely a Shasvastii assault squad. Are you saying that we cannot regain control? Oh, I think I can get us some access. It just takes a bit more time to feel the rhythm of the music. This is a score I've never heard before, if you get what I mean. Trishala ignores Victor's chatter and pulls enough information out of security to identify the locations of the assailants. A team of 3? No. 4 are closing in on their comrade's location. But without visual confirmation, Trishala cannot pull enough data on everyone's exact locations. If she could only know exactly where everyone was, maybe she could help. Victor sits up in his chair, hands motioning furiously as he makes his hacking attack. Take that, you asshole! Trying to fry my brain? Have a taste of my Trinity program. Oh, their hacker's gonna have the mother of all headaches. Realizing Trishala is staring at him, Victor calms himself down, looking a little bit awkward. You have access now. Maybe not for long, but for the time being anyway. Trishala just turns back to her console, multiple camera screens appear, and she monitors 40 visuals all at the same time without breaking a sweat. Dr. Rouhani is carrying Swanson down a corridor. It seems her leg is badly hurt. Further along from their position, Trishala pinpoints the team of Shasvastii closing in on the pair. The visuals begin to flicker. Victor, I'm already losing visuals. What? Damn, they're good. Let me see if I can keep them out of our system. Suddenly, a crackle and hiss is heard over the intercom system. Ada hurt. making our way King Bay. The communication cuts off and only a hiss is left. Victor jumps out of his seat, but looking far less joyous as he was before. Brimming with anger and frustration, he punches the nearest wall. Ah! Get vented, you alien bastards! Victor looks over to Trishala with what looks like shame in his eyes. Even Trishala is surprised to see that emotion from him, but she shows nothing of it. They've taken over again, and I can't do anything about it. Trishala continues to stare at Victor. Look, I just disconnected before they turned me into a dribbling vegetable. They have the system in lockdown. Any attempt to hack them now is only going to result in my death. And I like me too much to do that. Trishala returns to her console, continuing to monitor the data she can get. They are headed to the docking bay. We will go and meet them there and evacuate if they make it. If I can buy them some time. I may not have access to our security, but I still have access to maintenance programs. We can lock down the doors between them and the Shasvastii and give them a safe route to the docking bay. It is us who will have to fight our way to their location. At least 2 enemies are approaching our location to the west entrance. What? Victor springs to action, opening the emergency armory and taking 2 combi rifles. He throws one to Trishala, who catches it in one hand, not even taking her eyes off the monitors. Victor then moves toward the door, ready to cover the corridor. Stand down. Victor stops in his tracks, completely befuddled by the command from Trishala. Have you got a screw loose? You said they're coming. We need to take up a defensive position. Trishala speaks with purpose. I said, stand down. She then pulls a small device from her belt and clicks the trigger with her thumb. The explosion's flames engulf the corridor by the west entrance and almost knock Victor to the floor from the heat and surprise. Was that there all along and you didn't tell me? Plan for the worst, and all surprises will be pleasant. Trishala continues to look at Victor with that same placid look. Are you kidding me? Is there a bomb in my chair? Under my bed? She continues to stare, not confirming or denying any of his questions. I think it is best we go to the docking bay now. More Shasvastii are on their way to our location. Victor closes his eyes and shakes his head, putting all his questions and fears behind him before opening them again. Look, even if we make it to the docking bay, what's to stop the aliens from pursuing us and blowing us out of the sky? Trishala looks coldly back at Victor. There is a good chance they will, but calculating the odds, it is still our best bet for survival. What if I said there is another way? Trishala continues to look coldly at Victor, but ever so slightly cocks her head questioningly. I cannot take back control of security. They will be preparing firewalls to secure what they've already taken. I reckon they will be blindsided by a cyber attack on their own ship. I can introduce a virus and it may give us a bit more time to book it. Alien voices and footsteps can be heard approaching the bridge. By all means, do it, but do it quickly. Victor jumps back onto the console, a fever gripping him as his hands motion through his augmented reality program. He looks like a maestro at work as he breaks through security protocols and dodges detection, sweating with practiced concentration. The Shasvastii can be heard closing in on their position. They are close now. Trishala pulls another detonator and flicks the switch. Another explosion and the Shasvastii screams are heard only ever so briefly before the blast of wind and dust. None of the commotion tears Victor from his work. He continues until he grabs his head in both of his hands. We have to go. I did it. He turns to look at Trishala. I did it. Good. Let's go. That's it? Good. That's all you have to say? I just introduced a crippling systems virus to an alien ship with alien tech. That's never been done before, and all you can say is good? Yes, good. Now, let's go. By all means, lead the way, Your Highness. He gestures with a bow and hand toward the now blast-burned corridor. Trishala then leads the 2 of them, with Victor muttering to himself. something about high and mighty and damn crazy bitch being the most audible comments. It took them 10 minutes. That's all they needed to get to the docking bay. Trishala led the way. Every engagement she ordered Victor to move, and for all of his complaining, he followed her command. Even when it seemed she led them into dead ends. Every time, it was simply positioning the Shasvastii where she knew a bomb was and triggering them for maximum damage. Victor counted 6 of them going down to Trishala's explosives. He only managed to shoot 1 of the aliens. Soon enough, they were in the hangar. Victor ran over to help Rahman and Ada. Both looked exhausted and in pain. Trishala made her way to the dropship and opened up the boarding ramp for the rest of the crew. As soon as everyone was on, Trishala turned to Rahman, indicating toward Ada. "We need her to fly this thing now. Bring her back to a conscious state." Rahman Rouhani looks back at Trishala, staring daggers. It doesn't faze Trishala at all. "It could kill her. She has lost a lot of blood." "She will die alongside us if we don't leave now." She watches as Dr. Rouhani brings Ada back to consciousness. Gunfire erupts from the boarding ramp, quickly followed by Victor's shouts. Guys, we really need to be out of here right now." Ada sits up at the controls. Trishala isn't even sure she's going to be capable of piloting the ship in her condition. "I will get us flying soon, but we're going to need some cover. Keep those alien bastards back while I get us into the air." Trishala grips her combi rifle tightly and takes up defensive positions alongside Victor and Rahman. And that is when she sees it. The Acheron Tid. She had seen classified reports of the creature, but they didn't do it justice. Built like a tank, and armored like one, it carried an alien plasma rifle in one hand as if it was nothing. Victor looks on in horror. "Ada, we really need to get out of here right now. Just give me a minute." "We don't have a minute." Victor continues to rain firepower down, but his panic causes his aim to falter. Trishala stands and moves back to the cockpit placidly. She drops the rifle onto the deck. "Aren't you going to need that?" "I will buy you some time. Get us off this ship as fast as you can. I cannot promise this will hold them back for long." Ada looks over at Trishala with puzzlement. Or is it concern? "You're not going to, sacrifice yourself, are you?" Trishala continues to pack a bag of demolition charges with a variety of canisters, all with the flammable warning printed on them. "I don't think that is necessary, so no, I am not going to sacrifice myself. I do not understand why you are all so dramatic." She turns away and walks back to where the gun battle rages on. Swinging with all of her force she can muster, the demolition charge sails through the air and lands only a few feet in front of the Acheron Tid. As soon as the pack comes to a stop, the trigger is in Trishala's hand and the explosion lights up the docking bay with a wall of fire. The ship lurches up, knocking both Rahman and Victor off balance. Victor even drops his combi rifle and watches it go sliding off the ramp and to the docking bay floor. He watches it go with a sullen expression. "Damn, I really like that gun." As they fly, Trishala turns and enters the cockpit, followed by Rahman and Victor. She looks over the flight console. The Shasvastii are not in pursuit. Looks like the virus worked. Get some distance and we will contact O12. We need somewhere safe to hold up until rescue. As they fly over the planet of Paradiso, away from the fallen Orpheus, Trishala closes her eyes and reviews the events on the ship. How did nobody notice the enemy ship? There must have been a procedure overlooked to allow a slip-up like that. How did they all survive? All of her survival calculations presented this to be the least likely outcome. Could there be a saboteur? A traitor in the crew? Too many variables. Need more data. Need more information. Trishala's head twitched. She was not finding peace. That itch was back.